Alright everybody, welcome back. Part 2 of the Advanced Platoon Leader breakdown. What you see before you is the layout of some of the components. You've got your terrain cards configured thusly with 1, 2, 3 columns by 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. It's always going to be that way for a scenario, unless you do a DIY build your own scenario. I guess you could configure these however the hell you liked. As mentioned, your stat cards, this would be an American stat card, and then you have your German stat card, which would be right here, with your Balkan Kreuz, and victory point track, phase track, and turn weather phase card. Dice tray and dice, again, I recommend white, and I guess you could use black dice for your hit dice, and then a red fire intensity die and green fire regulation die. What else? Your chits. These are your phase chits, American and German in the same cup. Your German activation chits, which will not be used this time around, as this particular scenario that I'll present to you is an introductory scenario. And then your optional in-turn chits. So after you draw a phase chit, you draw one of these. After each phase chit, once you draw 2 blue, or in the game it'll be 2 gray phase chits, the turn ends. What else? So the scenario that we're looking at here is in fact a historical scenario, as all of them are, unlike the original Platoon Leader, which is kind of a abstract, fictional depiction of an event. This particular scenario is the first one. It's the manor. It's an introductory scenario. No German activation to worry about. You're just going to master the movement and combat mechanisms. And let's see, platoon from the 505th 82nd Airborne is basically going to try to get rid of some Germans that are holed up in a manor with a machine gun. So pretty straightforward stuff. There's how each of these scenarios will have this the way in which the cards need to be set up, any relevant information, victory conditions, and special rules. None of these scenarios have been finalized. They're all still in the works, but that is going to be what your basic scenario card looks like. And I should add, there will be 8 of these things, unlike Platoon Leader, which really only had 2 juicy, meaty scenarios that you could sink your teeth into. So a nice, healthy portion of scenarios for your buck. What else do we have here? So, again, American units will move from the bottom of the map and work their way up. You have command range to concern yourself with. You have command point or action points to concern yourself with. So when you roll for action points, you're rolling for each squad. You don't need to roll for the leader. He's already afforded 2 action points. But you will need to roll for the squad. Now, each squad has one inherent action point that it can use each turn. What you're rolling for is an additional action point. So, for instance, you would roll 3 dice for this platoon, and if you rolled a 1 or a 2, you would, 3 ones. So they all get their extra action point. If the leader had a modifier on him, that would bring the dice roll, the number rolled on the die down, depending on how much modifier the leader has, which helps in accruing an action point. They all got their action points, no problem. However, there will be times when they don't. And if that's the case, you have the option of using your 2 leaders' action points, 1 or both of them. Now, granted, if you use both of them, the leader can't move or fire or do anything, but the squads will. So each squad has 6 action points. They all draw from the same pool, and when you have 3 platoons in play, each will draw from its own platoon. Action pool. The cost for action points are 1 to 2 movement points can be expended for 1 action point. Up to 3 or 4 action point expenditures will get you up to 4 move you 4 squares in the open, or depending on the cover, break that down even less. Firing, again, if you want to fire at full strength, it's going to cost you 2 action points to fire, or you can fire at half strength for 1 action point. And there's other things as well, such as assault, etc. So that's pretty straightforward. When you start the game, you'll draw a chit, and the first chit we draw, for instance, is a German movement phase chit. That means the Germans would then, the player would elect what unit to activate and what to do with that unit, or if you're implementing the optional rules for the AI, you would consult that, determine who does what, and that German movement phase, draw another chit. Now, it could be another German phase chit. They would have 3 left at this point, or one of the 4 remaining American phase chits, or the event chit. Again, when you have multiple, when you have the German activation going for other scenarios, as you move up the map, once you enter a new row, you will draw for the next row to see if there are any German units and where they pop up. That said, combat, when you roll for a unit, you're going to have, for instance, this unit, Fresh, has 6 strength points, which are also synonymous with its firepower. So on its stat card, first platoon, third squad would be marked thusly with a die, or you can use a dry erase pen, 6. As it takes hits or step losses, if you will, that number goes down, turn the die, or erase the dry erase thing and add the new mark. Again, when you're rolling for hits, 6s are what you want. You'll roll 6 dice, wanting 6s, but then you add these. These are the flavor. Without these, this is pretty dry and tasteless. You add these, that's what happens. So, we would have 1 hit, and a 6 on the fire intensity die, and a 3 on the fire regulation die. Currently, that means a +3 morale check. Now, these will fluctuate based on various things. If the unit is in cover, that will bring the fire regulation die up. Or if, for instance, the unit is in the open, if the unit is moving, etc., etc., it's going to affect either die. This can go down or up. This can be modified down or up. If the fire intensity die is equal or greater, you're going to have a morale check, or +1 morale check if it's more than 1, a +2 morale check if it's more than 2. If it is 5 or greater, the difference, for instance, if after modifiers the fire intensity die is 5 or more than the fire regulation die, you're actually going to get another hit, as well as a morale check. Conversely, if the fire regulation die is 5 or less from the fire intensity die, you're going to have a negate 1 hit and be no morale check. Now, if you have on your hits, if your 6s, your hits are equal to or greater than your misses, the unit will be suppressed. A suppressed unit is turned thusly, as if it spent an action. So, when a unit spends 1 action, you turn it sideways. If it spends 2 actions, it is spent and is turned upside down. That is how that works. So that's the unveiling of what I'm pretty proud of with the new combat mechanism. That is one of the main features of Advanced Platoon Leader. It adds a lot of flavor. Again, it really interjects the subtle nuances that were missing from the original game. The tiniest things can now affect combat in a pretty big way, such that you could have 1 or more hits added as a result, or even taken away. The levels of morale checks are more detailed and finely tuned. Obviously, the other main feature of Advanced Platoon Leader is this map configuration. Each scenario will have a different configuration. You will also be able to design your own scenarios, configure these however you want. It doesn't even have to be 3x4. It can be 4x4 or 4x3, however you see fit. Standard for the game is this configuration, however. What else? The info and stat cards on the left are new and additional from the original Platoon Leader game. The phase chit draw mechanism is new. That was not in the original game. And it really helps if you do decide you want to use the AI. It really, they work hand in hand with each other. The fact that there is a particular phase helps you determine what a particular German unit would most likely do. So for instance, if you pull a rally chit, you're not going to worry about moving or firing because that is a rally phase. Units that are broken will need to then try to rally. Also, the random in-turn chits, that mechanism is new as well. What else do we have? I think that's about it. And man, actually, I've run out of time here as far as the length of this video to upload. But that is, again, a brief rundown. Hadn't talked to you guys in a while. I'd like to go into way more detail, but a couple of things. No point in doing it because, again, this thing, nothing is really final, and there are things that will most likely change or get tweaked as this thing moves along. You find that something doesn't work the way you thought it would on paper, etc. So that's it. Until next time, thanks for watching, and talk to you guys later.